Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar tonight. It's on Homeschooling 101, getting started for those of you who are checking out homeschooling for the first time, or maybe this is like your first year and you just kind of slowly worked your way into it. Tonight is a night for you to get some good information. My name is Dale Annand. I work for Minnesota Association of Christian Home Educators. We are your state organization. We do a lot of different things. One of the things we do is we equip moms and families to homeschool their children, dads too. We have a lot of homeschooling dads in our state. And so we like to have things like webinars. We have a podcast if you're interested that is called Homeschool Minnesota. You can find it on anywhere you find podcasts, and there's lots of things on there about curriculum ideas and interviews with authors and stuff about parenting. Everything is geared towards homeschooling. And so I'm happy that we can offer that to you. The other thing we have that is coming up, there's a lot that we have. If you want more information on Mache, you can check out mache.org, mache.org online. And there's all kinds of information on there. You can always email us at info@mache.org, and we will email you back with answering any questions that you have, or have somebody call you if you need a call. One of the other things that we have that's coming up that would be wonderful for you as new homeschoolers is in Duluth this year. We have our yearly convention, and our convention is awesome. We have homeschoolers from all over the state and in other states to come, because we have a really good convention. And we are at the Duluth Entertainment and Convention Center, so at the deck and in Canal Park, and it's May 16th and 17th. If you come on May 15th, we have a used curriculum sale. We have people from all over the state that come with all their used curriculum and books and things like that, where you can come in that day. You have to register, but it's free. But you can register to come, and then you come in and you get to shop all the used books and all the used curriculum, and then stay overnight. And the next morning and Saturday morning, you can be a part of the convention. If you go onto your app store of your phone, you can download the Mache app, MACHE, and it will give you all the information that you need about our convention. Or if you go onto mache.org, you can click on events, and there's a drop down list. Go on to Mache Convention, all the information is there. And we're super excited to be this year. We have some great speakers. Our keynote speakers are awesome, and we have a mom's night out and a dad's breakfast. So all kinds of wonderful things. But what we're here for tonight is Trisha with Homeschooling with Confidence is going to be doing a whole thing on Homeschooling 101. And I'm super excited to have Trisha here with us tonight. So we're just going to give her our undivided attention and let her get started. Thanks, Trisha.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dale. I'm so happy to be here with you. I have 6 beautiful kids. This is my crew and my husband and I, and we are about to launch our first child out of our house. She'll be graduating in just a few short weeks here, and she's there on the far right. That's Xandra, and we have been homeschooling since she was a preschooler. So this is probably our 14th year then of homeschooling, 13th if you only count from kindergarten. Homeschoolers do even that differently, don't we? So I'm excited to share with you about homeschooling. It is a journey, and it is beautiful, and it is hard. And I'm hoping to let you peek behind the curtain of our home tonight and our life, and that you'll see all of those things. You know, in a Pinterest world, it's so easy to just see all the good things and not see some of the hard and some of the struggle. And so I want you to see this whole picture of that, because in the middle of hard and struggle is God's goodness and his redemption, and his wisdom shines through. And so we have been transformed by homeschooling because we are being transformed by Jesus Christ. And so he is transforming our story as a family. And I pray that he is transforming my kids as they seek him. Let's pray to start, and then we're going to launch in. Father God, you're good, and we're grateful to be your kids. Would you use me as your vessel tonight? Would I be your mouthpiece? Would you work in the hearts of moms and dads who see this in the days to come and even tonight? Would you lead them gently? We know that you will, because we know that you are good. Thank you. In your name we pray. Amen. There is a handout if you received the email, if you're attending live and you receive the email, you can click on that handout. It'll take you to it. You can follow along if that's your jam. You can just take regular notes or you can just listen. This will be recorded on the Mache and Homeschooling with Confidence website. So you can go back and look as often as would be helpful to you. If you are watching the recorded version, we will put a link to the notes down in underneath the video on our respective websites. All right, enough about my crew. Let's get started. So I think there are a few things. I think there are probably a few of you who are watching this video right now who are still deciding, should we homeschool, should we not, and what does this really look like? And so this is a good place to start. And I think that as we begin tonight, we're going to talk about a few things I think you should consider before you homeschool. We're going to talk about the whys of why we and a lot of homeschoolers homeschool. And then we're going to talk about some real hard and fast tools to get you started. We're going to try to do all of that in about an hour tonight. So buckle your seatbelts. I talk fast and we're gonna move quickly through that so we can cover all that ground. So there's a few things I think you should consider before you start homeschooling. And the first thing is your spouse. If your spouse is not on board with homeschooling, I would caution you to step into homeschooling. I think that in a home where there are two parents, it is really important for both parents to be on board with homeschooling. It takes both of you. It's an extension really of your parenting. And it's really important for you to be on the same page. So if you are not, I would highly recommend you pause and you seek the Lord and you have a lot of really good, whole and healthy discussion. And you get at some of those reasons why people are concerned and what they're concerned about. And so I just want to encourage you that you and your spouse, things will go better if you are both on the same page. Um, I think it's important to consider your lifestyle. Do you work overnights? Do both you and your husband work? Whatever your lifestyle is, our family is what I would say maybe a little bit more traditional. I stay home and homeschool our kids, and my husband works a job. And so he works a paying job because somebody's gotta make this all work financially. And so whatever your lifestyle is, I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer as to what that needs to look like, but considering what your lifestyle is and how homeschooling will fit and marry with that. And I think one of the beauties of homeschooling is that whatever your lifestyle is, whether you work nights and sleep during the day, or whether you both work, or whatever your rhythm looks like, whether you're a pastor's family who works very odd hours, a lot of evenings, whatever your lifestyle is, homeschooling, I think, can fit that. But I think it takes a little bit of advanced thought about how could we do this? How can we do this? And so one thing I know about homeschooling is as unique as your family is, that is as unique as your homeschool experience can be. And so there are a million ways to homeschool because there are a million homeschoolers. And so it's just good to think about your life and what it looks like and how homeschooling could be a part of that. Your expectations, this is a big one. I find often when I enter a situation with expectations, particularly ones that are unspoken or really unexamined by me, we can tend to I tend to get myself in trouble really fast. And so I think it's important for you to think about what are my expectations of homeschooling? What are my expectations of myself, of my husband? What are my expectations of my children as we enter into homeschooling? And for that to be a part of the dialogue and for you to begin to ask the Lord, what is reasonable in my expectations and what do I need to let go of expectation wise. And so I think it's really good to expose those expectations, and some of them are going to be right on and you're going to want to hold on to those, and some of those, as you talk with your husband or your wife, as you talk with your kids, some of them will be exposed for maybe unrealistic. And I think if you can understand what you're thinking as you step into this, it's going to make the beginning of it a lot smoother and maybe a little bit easier. Your family, what are the needs of your family as a whole? What are the goals of your family? What are the needs of your individual children? What do you need? What does your husband need? These are all things that I think homeschooling can be shaped around. It's a priority in our home that our kids would know and love Jesus. And so our homeschool is shaped around that. It's a priority in our home that when my husband is home in the evenings, that's family time. And so we try to do almost all of our homeschooling during the day so that when dad's home, we can play as a family and we can give him an opportunity to build relationships. I've been doing that all day, for better, for worse, with my kids. So what are the priorities of your family? What does your family need? And what does your family desire? What do you desire for your family? That needs to all be a part of this conversation as you think about stepping into homeschooling, as you step into your first year of homeschooling. And then the last thing I want to just share with you is that you can do that. Do this. You can do this homeschooling thing by God's grace, through his wisdom and his power, not by our own might and not by our own bootstraps pulling ourselves up, but by God's grace, we can home educate our children. We can teach them to become lifelong learners, and we can do hard things, and we can train our children to also do hard things, and we can I think, create a lot of beautiful memories and a lot of deep, rich relationship in our home as we do this crazy thing called homeschooling. I really believe, and I know it to be true in my own life. I was not a homeschooled child. I grew up in the public school system with two working parents. I thought that homeschool moms and stay-at-home moms were really lazy. I literally couldn't figure out what they did all day. I just thought they sat on the couch and ate bonbons and watched soap operas. And so God has a way of humbling our foolishness. And so I became a homeschool mom who stays at home with her kids. And God has equipped me for that. And he has blessed me in that. And so I really believe that he will do that for you as you seek him. So those are some thoughts. And then here are some whys. I think it's important as we think about homeschooling, why do we do it? And there are as many reasons why people homeschool as there are homeschoolers. But I find there are some that kind of are a little bit universal. And so I'm going to try to cover about 10 of those with you here really briefly. The first is to know God's love. Why am I doing what I'm doing with my kids? Is so that my kids can know God's love and so they can know my love. And I think that homeschooling my kids is the best opportunity to teach them day in and day out that God loves them through all the highs and lows of life, through all their failures and successes, through my failures and successes. God loves them and he loves me and he loves you unconditionally and perfectly. And I think homeschooling is a beautiful opportunity to teach that day in and day out. Another reason is to learn to love God. I think homeschooling is a daily opportunity for my kids and for me to learn to love God with all my heart, all my soul, all my strength, all my mind, through scripture, through prayer, through worship together, through service, through all the ups and downs, the tantrums and the tears over math, every age, every stage. I think there's just this really regular opportunity to turn our hearts toward Christ, to seek him and to know him and his good love more. Also, to learn to love our neighbor. Homeschooling lends itself to this. We have a friend in her 80s, and we are her adopted family. She treats me as though I'm her child. She never had children herself, and so we spend a piece of our homeschool week every week, purchasing groceries for Carol, picking up bird seed so she can feed the birds, hauling her trash down the apartment hallway. Part of our homeschool curriculum, if you will, every week is to love and serve Carol. And so it's important for me and my life to translate my faith into action. And I want my kids to do that as well. And so homeschooling is our training ground for their faith and their love of God to become a mission and a behavior that flows out of them. And so we naturally get to do that as homeschoolers. More wise to meet individual needs. I have 6 different kids with 6 different learning styles and 6 different personalities. And one of my kids needs a quiet bedroom to do her homework, and the other one is riding a ripstick. If you don't know what that is, it's a really cool kind of skateboard, but he's riding his ripstick around the circle of my kitchen. And so they each need different things. And homeschooling allows me to custom fit their education and to meet their needs and to meet them where they're at that moment in that grade level, at that time, without pressure, without this is what should be, but what is it that this child needs? And how can I nurture what I see God has fit them for? How can I nurture that in them? We love the schedule flexibility of homeschooling. I'm not captive to someone else's schedule. We make scheduling decisions that work for our families, and I see homeschoolers do this all of the time. If we need to pause school for a season, we can do that. We have the liberty to do exactly what works for us. I was gone last week traveling with one of my older children, looking at colleges, and so my husband managed school in the evenings, and my kids did school independently during the day, and he checked it in the evening. And then I just arrived back in the cities where we live this early this morning, and I did some more checking in. And it wasn't perfect. They didn't do a perfect job while I was gone, but that's okay because we just did some catch up today, and we read the science lessons that they didn't read while I was gone. And we can do that. I can take the time to meet the needs of my older children, and then later I can take the time to meet the needs of my younger children. I love the flexibility of homeschooling. I also think that homeschoolers know this truth well, and that is that learning is not contained in a classroom. Last winter, our family took a trip to Florida over Christmas break. We were gone for a couple weeks, and don't tell my kids this, but while we were on vacation, class was in session. We saw all these cool things. We saw alligators just a few feet away from us. We saw a black crowned night heron, that's a bird, and belted kingfishers snapping fish from the water, and the fish sucking its face right on the on the beak of the bird, and that we like literally like 3 feet from us. This is happening. This nature, and that bird won. The fish went down the gullet. But we also traveled in a van together, all 8 of us, plus a good friend of ours, and so 9 people in a van. We drove straight through because we've got lots of drivers because we've got older kids and 3 adults with my husband's friend, and so we learned what it looks like to live in tight quarters, to tent camp in all kinds of weather. And so my kids learned a whole bunch of things that were important for life, and we never even cracked a textbook. Why do we homeschool? To instill a lifelong love of learning. It is so rewarding to teach your kids to read and then to see them out in the hammocks today in Minnesota. I don't know how warm it was, but it wasn't super warm. But my kids are outside in shorts, barefoot, in hammocks reading books today. And so they they take the learning with them where they go. And so we get to be a part of that, and we get to be a part of instilling that independence for learning in them. I love the quality time. When my daughter was 6 and ready to go out the door to kindergarten, the reality was is I just didn't want to send her out of the house for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. I wanted to keep her close. I enjoy her. And so homeschooling lets me have lots of quality time being with my kids and being with them, being together, which is one of my later points, which is the opportunity to develop sibling relationships in homeschooling is so beautiful and is such a unique and wonderful opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity to teach. There's a lot of conflict in our home because we're together all the time. There's also where there is conflict, there is opportunity. All right, ability to address all the needs. My kids are not learning robots, and I'm guessing yours aren't either. And so they have needs that extend into spiritual realms, emotional realms, physical realms, and they present them at unscheduled times. Sometimes in the middle of a math lesson, what we need to do is we need to close our math book and we need to handle what is happening in my child who is crying daily over math. So, um, homeschooling allows me the opportunity to address that need in real time as it's happening, and to see that as an opportunity to help my child grow and to hear the truth of what God says about her and this situation, and to not allow her to walk out a lie. And so I think some of the best days we've had as homeschoolers are the days when we close the school books to address a need that has presented itself in the moment. I love that my kids get to learn life skills right next to me. My husband was traveling a few years ago and our washer broke because that's how that works. The person who is able to fix the appliance is often not there. And so I need with eight of us in the house, I need a washing machine. And so I closed the school books that day and I brought the kids down one at a time. They would each help me for about an hour. And we opened YouTube and we took the washer apart and we found the socks stuck in the pump and we put it all back together and we made the washing machine work. And so I'm learning. I don't know how to do that. I'm learning, but I'm also teaching them and they're learning right alongside me. And so we paint walls and we learn to take care of our home and we learn to change the oil. And whatever life is presenting is an opportunity for us to learn as homeschoolers. I love my kids have this ability as a homeschooler to discover themselves. What is it that makes them tick? I love studying that, and then I love helping them understand what are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you love? Is what you love what you're good at? You can explore that even if you're not good at it. I'm a runner and I'm a really slow runner, but I enjoy running. I think it's so good for me. It's good for my emotional and mental health, but I'm not good at running. Is it okay for us to do things that we're not good at in the world's eyes? Absolutely. And giving space for that development in homeschool is beautiful to develop things that we're really skilled at, but also things that we just want to explore and enjoy, even if we're not the best at them. And so they get to learn about themselves in this process called homeschooling. And then I mentioned this to encourage healthy relationships. These people are going to be related their whole life, and I want them to grow up as friends. And so that propels me to deal with the issues that come up in our home. And with six children, five of them being teenagers right now, 13 to 18, I got an 11-year-old that's about to turn 12, and then they're 13, 14, 16, 17, 18. You can bet there's a lot of emotional and relational drama in my house. And it's wearying sometimes, but it's also an opportunity. And so I want to accept the opportunity to help them grow in relationships. And they won't just benefit as siblings, every relationship they hold after this will benefit from the work that we do in our home and in our school. So I'm curious for you tonight, what's on your list? Why would you homeschool? What is the thing or group of things that you say, I think homeschooling might be good for us because of X? And I bet you probably have some that float to the top. Maybe some of them are similar to mine, and maybe some of them are completely different. There's not really a wrong answer of why we homeschool, but I want you to hold on to that because we are going to come back to the whys of homeschooling in just a few minutes. I want to talk about vision and values. When you think about what is it that we want school to look like this year, or what is it that we want homeschooling, period, to look like, before you consider your schedule and your curriculum and if you should join a co-op, I want to encourage you to continue to like take a step back and think about some grounding principles that you and your husband or you and your wife might have, that would allow you to develop a vision for your kids and a vision for your school, a vision for your family. And I think that you'll find that that vision and that intention to make, here's what we want to see, will pay dividends in guiding you toward what you should do about schedule, what you should do about curriculum. If we have some anchors already set, those other decisions become not always easy, but they become more clear for us. So let's talk about this. How to begin? How do we begin with casting a vision or with developing values in our homeschool? You're going to hear me say this a lot. And I say it unapologetically because it is the thing that sustains me. And I think if you talk to homeschoolers who love and follow Jesus, they'll say it too. And that is to begin with prayer. And I would encourage you to do it together with your spouse, to have this discussion, to pray together, to pray separately, and then to have this discussion about what it is that we want for our homeschool. It's a great date night discussion. I know several of you have young children, so I'm gonna this is a freebie. It's not in my script. My husband and I, we had all these little kids, and we couldn't really afford to go out frequently, and nor did we have the time. It just didn't make a lot of sense when our kids were young. And so we have cardboard. We have a card table in our bedroom. We hide it behind our dresser. And we're going to have one tonight after this webinar is over because I've been traveling and I miss my husband and he misses me. So we are going to grab some Chipotle. That's our thing. We get Chipotle and then we set up the card table and we eat dinner together. We talk, and then a lot of times a game. We love to play games, so a game will come out. So these are our card table dates, and our kids know that when we're having a date in the bedroom and the door is closed and locked, they leave it that we expect them to leave us alone. When they were young, we would just put them to bed and do it. But now they're old, they stay up late. And so they know. So a lot of times they'll serenade us outside our bedroom, which is a joy and also a little eye rolling, right? No, we love it. We love that they come to serenade us. So be flexible and be creative. And as you do that in your relationship with your husband, you're going to find that's really going to assist you in homeschooling. Flexibility and creativity are your friends when homeschooling. All right, so start with the why. We just discussed my why. So what's your why? Think back that list and anything you added to your list or anything that rose, that's where you should start. Why are you homeschooling? And let that shape where your homeschool goes and what you do with your homeschool. And then I want to encourage you to think about the future. So we like to start with the end in mind. So years ago, my husband and I would say, when these kids are adults, what is it that we want for them? What's your greatest hope for them? What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your family dynamic? And so start with the future. What do you want this to look like someday? What do you want for each of them individually and corporately? And so for me, and I bet a lot of you share this, my greatest desire for my kids is that they would know and love Jesus, because I know that the school they attend and the future husband and the jobs or the not jobs, and should they stay at home and should they homeschool, I know that Jesus, as if he is their one aim, he is going to direct their path. He's going to care for them in the ups and downs of life. And he holds the keys and he holds the answers. And so that's my one aim. And so that is a huge shaping piece of what happens in our day, of what we have done as we have trained our children and as we have homeschooled. Okay, I want you to consider not just the future, but the present. What do we desire right now for our kids? I already mentioned one of these things, but I desire good sibling relationships. I desire them to know themselves and to understand what makes them tick, both in a uh, in a sinful bent kind of way, but also in a God redeemed kind of way. I want I want our home to be a safe place where they can have big emotion, where they can have big thoughts and feelings, where they can dream, where they can be quiet. I want all of those things for them. And then I'm going to encourage you, as you process this, to write all of this down. Based on the answers to the questions we've just talked about, I would encourage you to write a vision or a mission. And I have friends who have written this together with their husband, and then they post it on their homeschool wall, whatever that is. For us, it's a dining room wall. They post it on their dining room wall, and it allows them to reference it several times a year. I have friends who just keep it in a notebook, and they reference it and they think about that. Are we moving in this direction or are we not moving in this direction? And so I think it gives us an opportunity to make sure that our goals and our priorities and our behaviors match the vision. So the goal of doing this is that it gives us a framework, and now we're going to intentionally walk that out. I want to just highlight this Homeschool Life All-in-One Planner. Chris Cox, who also works with Homeschooling with Confidence, designed this years ago for homeschool families, and there's tons of getting started resources in here that I think many homeschoolers have found invaluable over the years. But one of the things that's nestled in this wonderful book is documents on mission and values, and many of the questions that we've kind of talked through tonight are there in more detail, with space to write answers and to kind of slowly work through that in paper and pen. So if you're a paper and pen kind of person and you find that kind of exercise helpful, this might be a good resource for you. All right, we're going to talk. Okay, we talked about making it match. We want our vision to match our behavior. And so we're going to talk about that now. We're going to talk about homeschooling and our school. And one of the big questions there is, what do you want your school to look like? And I want to encourage you that your family is unique, and God has made you, God has made your husband, and he has made your children, and he has made you each unique. And so it is okay for your school to be unique. You are not the public schools. You are not the private school down the street. And you are also not my homeschool. God has crafted you as mom and dad of these children. And so it is okay. It is actually wonderful if your school is unique. And so I want to just share with you the first year that we homeschooled. I have an education background. I'm a music teacher by trade. And so I have some very strict ideas about what this school situation should look like as we enter kindergarten with my eldest. So when my eldest was a kindergartner, I had four other children. We had five children, ages 6 and down. And so we lived in a house in Bismarck, North Dakota, and it had a lot of space and I had an extra room. And so I turned this room into a homeschool room with charts and calendars on the wall and a table with chairs that my kids were too little to sit at, but we did it anyway. And I made what I thought was an appropriate room for school. And then every day we would go down into this room. The room was in the basement. The kitchen was upstairs. The baby's bedroom upstairs. The toys upstairs. Everything in our life was upstairs in that house, and school was downstairs. And so we would start something, and then the baby would need a diaper change. Then I'd go upstairs and change the diaper and come back down. And then it would be time for lunch. And so I'd go upstairs and we'd make lunch, and everybody would have to transition back upstairs. And then we would do lunch, and then we would transition back downstairs. And we were just up and down all day long. It really made no sense at all. But I just felt like that's how you're supposed to do it. I had some expectations, and the joy of having expectations is that sometimes you get to walk out your expectations and live the consequences of them. And so I would love to say that what I learned from that year was that that was a bad plan. But I didn't learn that. But God is gracious and He teaches us sometimes, even in our foolishness. And so my husband, that first year of school, he lost his job in Bismarck, North Dakota, and we ended up moving in for 4 months with my in-laws. Super gracious to allow the seven of us, and then the eight. We had a baby while living with them that season. And so the eight of us to be in their home. And so school looked a lot different the second year. I had a first grader and a kindergarten and four little babies. And so we did school at the dining table because that was a space that was available to us in my mom-in-law's house. And I would just bring out this one board and we would do like our spelling and our calendar on it. And then we would put it away when we were done because we weren't the only ones living in the house. And you know what? We never looked back. I live in a house. Right now that's not as big and spacious as that house that we lived in Bismarck. But what God taught me that year was that it just made sense for my family to do school around the dining table. And so we still do to this day on the couches, in the living room, and in the dining room, and in the kitchen. We kind of have this open layout. And so our family does school around the dining table still. And my walls in my dining room, while I would love them to be beautifully decorated and adorned, they have whiteboards and cork boards everywhere, and we use those things for school, and so they are on our walls in our schoolroom, which is our dining room. And so you don't have to do that like me. You don't have to do it anyway. I just want to encourage you to maybe not learn those lessons the hard way, but to do what makes sense for you. And maybe desks and chairs make sense for your family. I just want to encourage you that your school doesn't have to look like the public school, and it doesn't have to look like my school or the school down the street. Do what's best for you and do what's best for your kids. And then I want to encourage you to do what's best in this season. Remember our vacation we took last year? That's what was best in that season. We've had seasons where we've participated in co-ops. We've had seasons where right now we're in a season where we're not in a co-op, but we do science on Monday afternoons with friends, science and math. And so that's the season we're in, and that's what makes sense for school right now. And so I want to encourage you to do what's best for you. Mom and dad, you get to be a consideration here too. Sometimes we need to do what's best for us because it brings some life so that we can pour life into our kids. And so ask the Lord. I think He will show you. All right, we're going to get down to some nitty gritty. A lot of folks who are considering homeschooling have a lot of questions about what does a Minnesota law say about homeschooling and how do I remain compliant with the law. So we're going to dig into that. I want to encourage you. There's a lot of information here. And if you're following along on the handout, you can fill it in and you'll have it in writing there. But it's also on our website, hswithconfidence.com. We have a video that explains just the homeschool laws on our website under the Getting Started section. And you can also read through some of this there. Also, Michelle's explanation of the homeschool laws on their website is wonderful. I looked at it today just to make sure nothing had changed before we did this presentation tonight. Also, the homeschool HSLDA, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. I hope I have that. I have to get that acronym messed up in my brain. But HSLDA, they also have an amazing picture of homeschool laws in every state. So if you don't live in Minnesota, you can go to hslda.org and find the laws in your state. So for Minnesota specifically, the first year you homeschool, which is, I think I'm talking to most people who will be homeschooling probably for the first time next fall, you need to file an initial report. Now, when you do this is important. This initial report is to be filed for children who are age 7 to age 17. So I have an 18-year-old. I'm not required by state law to register her as a student anymore. Now, you want to begin this the year that your student is 7 by October 1st. So if you have a student who's 6 and they'll turn 7 on November 30th this year, you do not need to fill out this form yet. You can start them in kindergarten or whatever you want to do with them. You don't have to submit the paperwork. But the year when they are 7 on October 1st, that's the year you need to submit paperwork. You can download this paperwork from Michelle's website. They have paperwork there that is compliant. And we recommend you use their paperwork, but you're going to want to file it by October 1st so that you're not truant. And you're going to want to include a testing plan. I'm going to go over this in just a moment. Immunizations. So if you have a conscientious objection to immunizations, you can file that instead. Again, that paper is, it does need to be notarized and it is on Michelle's website. Or you can just get your immunizations from the Minnesota Department of Health or from your pediatrician also. And then where do you get the forms? I just went over that. Michelle is the place. You can see it in writing there if it's hard to understand me there. So you're after the first year. So the first year you're going to file that intent, that initial report, and then you're just going to file a letter of intent to continue homeschooling. And so each year you're going to need to fill in your testing information. And then you won't need to submit immunizations every year, just when they get to 7th grade or age 12, wherever they get that next immunization set, you'll want to refile those immunizations with the school district. You're going to want to keep a copy of everything you submit. You can do that in paper format or digital format. But anytime you do anything with your homeschool paperwork wise, it's wise to just keep a copy of that. I want to talk a little bit about the testing requirement. Minnesota does have a testing requirement, and it's that students take a nationally normed test once a year. You get to decide when that happens and where that happens. And the one thing is that you just need to indicate that test choice on your intent to homeschool paperwork. So you'll do that every year. You'll indicate the test that you desire to use. You are not required to submit your test results to the state or the school district. No one needs to see them. You do the tests, and then you can look at the results. If your student scores 30% or less on total battery, so not just in one section, but on the total test battery, or if they're more than one grade lower than their peers, again, not on one section, but on the total battery of the test, then you need to have them evaluated. You're not required to have that done at the school district. You may if you choose, but again, you can choose where or how to have them evaluated, but it is required by law to have them evaluated. I want to just share with you a few of the tests if you're not familiar. Some of you probably, if you grew up in school, in like a public school setting, you probably took some of these tests. The Stanford, the Iowa Basics. This is one that my kids and I have done many years. They're just like those typical bubble tests with the paper and the pencil and the bubble. Now they even have them online. So the CAT test, the Peabody is an oral test. You have to have someone who is certified to administer this test, but they oftentimes I have seen they come to your house and they administer the exam orally. It takes about an hour. We usually spend several mornings a week doing one of these other kinds of tests, but the Peabody can be done in about an hour per child. The Woodcock Johnson is another one. And then your mileage may vary on these last ones, the PSAT, the SAT, and the ACT. I have high schoolers, and so they're taking these tests. We submit the PSAT and the SAT to our school district every year when my kids take them, and they approve the tests. I have heard that there are other school districts who have not. And so your mileage may vary on that. I live in Anoka Hennepin, and we've had no problem using those as our nationally normed tests for our high school students. So the superintendent has always approved them. I do want to just say about the Peabody and the Iowa Basics. One year I was curious, and so we did both. I had my kids do both the Iowa Basics and the Peabody in the same year. And that 1 hour test or that bubble test that took several mornings a week, and my kids scored basically the same on both tests. And so I thought that was fascinating. But they really do give you a good picture of where your students are at. And we enjoy the test because we like to just kind of see where our kids are tracking. And when I see that they're a little low in an area, then I just say, okay, next year, let's work a little bit more on language arts. That's a good area for us to focus on next year. So they can be a really good tool for you. All right, there are some teaching requirements in Minnesota. And the good news for you is if you are the parent and you desire to teach your kids in homeschool, then you are qualified. And so this is kind of a joke in our house because thank you for the permission to be qualified to teach my children, state of Minnesota. But you are qualified under law, and so I'm grateful for that. We don't have to jump through any extra hoops. If you have someone else like a grandma, or maybe you hire someone to teach someone other than you is teaching, they do need to hold one of these requirements, either a Minnesota teaching license or be directly supervised by a licensed teacher or successfully complete a teacher competency exam, or they can be providing instruction through an accredited school, or they can hold a bachelor's degree. Any of those will fit for someone who is not the parent who is providing the major instruction for your students. All right, we're going to talk about record keeping. Minnesota has some record keeping requirements. Minnesota requires that you show that you're teaching all subjects. And we're going to go over what those subjects are in a few minutes, but that's one of the first requirements. They also require that you keep your test results. Again, not required for them to be turned in anywhere, just for you to have them and keep them. Other items that Minnesota requires are class schedules. This does not need to be complicated, particularly if you're in elementary school. We would just post like our morning rhythm, my kids didn't do school in the afternoons generally when they were young because you just don't need that much time. And so we would our morning rhythm, we would like do morning time at 9, and then we would do a list of subjects, and then we would do a break at 10:15, and so a very simple schedule is all you need. Do it one time. You don't have to rewrite the schedule every week. Just evidence that you've had some intention here. Materials used for instruction. So I keep some of my kids' work, examples of my kids' work. We methods that you're using to assess student achievement. This sounds really big. If you're using a pre-made curriculum, that's already written into the curriculum. But also this can be oral assessment. Math facts, checking in on math facts, that's oral assessment. How are you making sure your kids are learning what they are learning? And then in high school, you're going to want to keep transcripts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Okay. Other non-required record keeping ideas. So again, if this is helpful to you and life-giving to you, you can do this. This is not required by the state of Minnesota. We sometimes recommend parents do this. If it's burdensome to you, you can let go of that. Keeping a record of attendance, just the days that you've been in school. Sometimes parents really find that encouraging to say, look at all these days of school we've done so far. Information on textbooks and workbooks. I tend to make a list each year of the name of my student, the texts that we are using, and who they're by, especially for my high school students when I'm trying to complete a transcript. Student work samples, I discussed that, and then achievements and awards. We keep those in a little file for each one of our kids. Michelle recommends that you keep the records for 3 years. And then, of course, in high school, there's 4 years on that transcript, 9th through 12th grade. So you're going to want to keep evidence of the student's work for all 4 years of high school. All right, I just want to highlight this. One is that if you're really interested in the record keeping topic, there is another Mache and Homeschooling with Confidence webinar about transcript making and record keeping. And we sell a bundle. You can buy just the record keeping, you can buy just the transcript, or you can buy the bundle together. We sell this on our website. It's a digital download, and all of these record keeping things we just talked about, they're in that record keeping bundle. If you just want something that's ready made and you just want to tackle that, that's a great resource. I think it runs somewhere between 10 and 15, maybe $13 for just the record keeping bundle. They're simple, they're easy to use, and once you download them, they're yours forever. Okay, curriculum requirements. I said you have to show that in the state of Minnesota, we have to show that we're teaching the required subjects. Well, what are the required subjects? Here they are. So basic communication skills, reading, writing, literature, and fine arts. Math, of course, and then science. Also, the state asks us to teach health and physical education and social studies, which is an encompassing term for history, geography, government, citizenship, and economics. And before you feel really overwhelmed, like I can never do that, I don't even remember how to do algebra 2. First of all, we started kindergarten, right? And God gives us grace for each year that we're at. And so even if you're in 4th or 5th grade, we're not teaching algebra 2. But the other thing I want to encourage you is that there is no requirement in the state of Minnesota how often you have to do that, or that you even have to teach every single one of those things every single year. You do need to show evidence over the course of study that they have studied those subjects. But I find that particularly in the younger years, if you have a history curriculum you're following, you are talking about geography. We've got maps on our walls as homeschoolers. We're talking about where people live and how that works, and how far do you think it was from there to there. And so we are doing a lot of this if we're, particularly if you're using a pre-made curriculum, that geography and history and social studies components are often wrapped all together. But you don't have to do it all every single year. The other thing I want to say is if you are a mom or dad and you've got several kids, you can do as much of this together as possible. It helps keep everyone sane. And there are a lot of subjects that work great for family learning. Science is one, especially in the elementary years. But right now I have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader, and we're doing a general science curriculum all together. And once a week we get together with another 6th grader, and the 4 kids do all the experiments, and we watch some videos, and it's great to do it together. Health and physical education, fine arts. These are all things that can be done together, studied with other people outside your home or studied as a family. Social studies, history, geography, government, economics. There are curriculums out there that are really designed in the homeschool world, like the Mystery of History, that are designed for them to be read and addressed to young students, middle students, and older students. And so sometimes these curriculums will even run across the middle school, high school, elementary years. And so there's a lot of wonderful resources out there that make this easier for us. There are some subjects that I don't think work well for family learning, and those subjects are math, because kids tend to math and language arts, because sorry about that. What they tend to do is these subjects cover a specific scope and sequence. So the scope is what is studied, and the sequence is the order in which we study it. And those are done by age or by grade. And so these subjects are better for individual learning, and honestly, great for one-on-one time with me or with you in your home. And so they usually require us to purchase, individual curriculums for each. I have a 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader right now, and they all have their own math curriculum. And sometimes they can help each other even. But I sit at the table in the mornings, and one of the things I do is I facilitate math help for all those different ages and grades, and that works pretty well. So If you're worried about what your kids should be learning at each age and stage, then the pre-made curriculums in math and language arts will naturally help you and your students get where they need to be academically. So if you're using something that's already made, your kids are going to be just fine. We have other curriculum that is certainly not required by the state of Minnesota, but I recommend families use this too. Bible, right? Character studies, life skills and etiquette. These are not things that we always open a textbook for, but they're really important as part of our kids' overall education. It's important my kids know how to cook. It's important my kids know how to clean. It's important that they can go to other people's home and eat dinner and not be an embarrassment to themselves and their families. And so these are things that we're teaching as a part of our homeschool life. Foreign language is another one. Many colleges like to see foreign language on a high school transcript. We have a chosen course of study of Arabic in our house. My husband studied it in college, and so our family has chosen that, and it's something that some of my kids love and some of my kids don't love. But another thing is to just explore your child's interests. So, are they interested in digital photography? How about graphic design? Or maybe they want to play the saxophone. Whatever is their interest is I recommend that you let them explore that as a part of their school day or their school year or their schooling experience with you. Sometimes I think we just get so wrapped up in the academic part of homeschooling that we forget to put the emphasis on teaching them about the Lord and about their character and about some of these things that aren't always found in books. And so, this is a quote that Chris shared with me years ago by Clay and Sally Clarkson. She found years ago, and she shared it with me just a few years ago. And I just love it. It says, "A mature disciple of Jesus Christ with the will and skill to learn is much more useful to God's work than a well-educated but immature Christian." So I want to encourage you as you think about curriculum for your children over the years that come to always allow God to root you and to root them in seeking Him and knowing Him, that would be your top priority. And then these other academics can fall underneath that. I want to share one final thing about Minnesota homeschool laws, and that is a few perks that I think Minnesotans are available to us here living here. One is a sales tax exemption. So all schools in the state of Minnesota are considered not for profit, and so as such, a homeschool can apply for a sales tax exemption, and so they can purchase items for their school without having to pay sales tax. And so if you want to know how to do that, we have a really fantastic explanation on our website at hswithconfidence.com. Underneath the Getting Started tab, you'll scroll down there and you'll see that in step 2 where it talks about Minnesota homeschool laws. And we'll walk you through how to fill out those forms and how to get your sales tax exemption if that's something that's important to you and your family. I will just say in the last year, one of my children purchased a brand new saxophone, and we emailed the state of Minnesota and said, "Does this count?" She uses it for lessons and band, and they said, "Yes, it is." So she, thousands of dollars, this musical instrument. We did not, as a homeschool, pay any sales tax on the purchase of that musical instrument. So it can have some real life ramifications there if you want to apply for that sales tax exemption. Okay, income tax, subtraction or credit. My husband and I just went through this. I keep track of all of our purchases every year for school. So, music lessons, one of my students is in speech therapy. We keep track of curriculum that we purchase and anything that we purchase specifically for school. We can't use, our couch. We can't claim that, but we can claim anything that's really for educational purposes on our taxes, and it fades out by income. So if you make less income, it's a direct subtraction, I think, and then it phases out to a credit, or I might have those reversed. But this is a part of the Minnesota income taxes, and so I'd encourage you just to keep track of that throughout the year, what you spend on homeschool expenses. Keep a spreadsheet, and you'll have some numbers you can pop in and save some money on your taxes. There is also a curriculum reimbursement. Some Minnesota homeschoolers participate in this and some don't. I like to mention it. This year, I think it was around $90 per student. You can apply in October for your students to be a part of this program, and then they will reimburse up to 90 some dollars per child in your homeschool, you'll get that money back. So you have to purchase the curriculum, turn in the receipts, and then they will reimburse you for that up to a certain amount per child. I will say with that reimbursement, it cannot have any religious content. It has to be something that could be used in the schools. With the income tax subtraction or credit, that can have religious content. It can't be a Bible curriculum, but if your language arts has religious content, it qualifies for the income tax subtraction or credit. Again, my husband and I, we like to do things right. So when we first lived in Minnesota, we emailed the Minnesota tax people and said, does our language arts count because it's got Bible content? And they said, yes, as long as it is primarily a language arts curriculum. So we've kept that email. So you keep good records. We've kept that email all these years, just in case anyone ever has a question for us about that. Okay. Also, your students can move in and out of the public schools for extracurricular activities. And then also they can receive counseling, speech, and other services. You'll find a wide variety of opinions in the homeschool world about how much people want to enter in with the public school and how much they want to enter out. And I would say a lot of homeschoolers really like to minimize the contact there. You'll have to decide what is best and wisest for your family. But I just wanted to make you aware of those services. Okay, if you have questions, I'm going to send you to these two websites, and then there's my email. You can inbox me if for any questions you have about anything tonight, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can, which sometimes is a day or two, but I do eventually return those emails. Okay, let's keep going. Talking about our kids, discovering your kids. One of the things I love is that homeschooling is this opportunity for me to know all about my kids and to develop environments and opportunities that best suit them. And so here are some examples of things I know about my kids, and I bet you could say similar things about yours. Some of my kids need movement. When my eldest son was learning to read, he would stand at the table. He would stand and he would just move constantly and he would read. And one day I said, Jojo, stop moving. And he stopped moving, and it's like someone turned his brain off. And so that guy, he's got to move. But we homeschool, and so I can let him move while he learns. And his brain works best when he is moving. I have kids who need peace and quiet, and so I have a student who does most of her work in her room. And so because she needs the quiet and she needs a distraction-free environment, and I can give that to her. My boys develop more slowly than my girls. What my son was able to do at about age 13, my girls were already doing at age 10. And I learned that about them as we go. I have a child with auditory processing. I have one who has an undiagnosed ADHD, but we understand and we've created things to help her. We have kids who like to stare at the wall instead of tackle the difficult problem in front of them. And, I didn't know all of that when we were getting started. It came as I studied and as we learned and as I made mistakes as mom. And it's one of the joys and rewards of homeschooling. We can discover our kids and what makes them tick. So, how do we discover our kids? Well, it starts with prayer. Let's pray for wisdom. God knows them, He created them, and He loves them more than we do. And so let's ask Him to help uncover what we need to understand, to help them understand themselves, and to help educate them in the best way possible. Another way to know your kids is to study yourself and study your husband, right? They are made up from your genetics. And so, what makes me tick? What makes my husband Joe tick? What makes him tick socially? What makes him tick academically? And knowing that about yourself and your husband is a gateway to understanding your kids. It seems so obvious, but don't forget it as you seek to discover them. How are they different from both of you? How are they the same as both of you? I have an eldest child who is very much like my husband, who was an eldest child. They are very logical thinkers, and very reasoned. But she's female and he's male. And so she has a lot of emotion that goes with her very logical bent. And so I want to share this work on. I want to share this idea to uncover your child's learning style. This is one of my favorite resources from Cynthia Tobias, The Way They Learn, and it talks all about learning styles and how we take in information and then what we do with it inside and then how it comes back out of us. And so I highly recommend that book. I will, to everyone who's watching this webinar tonight, we have a free learning styles assessment. I think it works great starting at about age 7 or 8 that I'll email out to you as a follow-up for tonight. And if you're watching this recorded video, we have it on our website right on the homepage. You can click the box for a free learning style assessment, and it's a PDF you can print out at home, and we'll send it over to you. All right. Kathy Duffy has this book, 103 Top Homeschool Picks, and I think this is an awesome book for all things curriculum. But what I really love about Kathy's book is that in the beginning of this book, it's an assessment of you and an opportunity for an assessment of your child. It's all kind of connected to what Cynthia Tobias talks about in The Way They Learn. And she connects those learning styles to curriculum. And I have loved this resource when my kids were young. I went back to it every summer and I would read and think and pray and jot notes down about each of my kids and what might be good. And so that learning styles assessment fits right in with this Kathy Duffy tool on curriculum. Understanding my learning style with my kids and my husband opened doors understanding even how my husband works. And one of the things that's so funny about Cynthia Tobias's book is that as I read that the first time, I suddenly understood some things about my husband that I had never understood before. And it really improved our marriage relationship because I understood some things. And so I think that not just learning styles help you pick curriculum, but they help you understand one another in your home and then have better communication and stronger and deeper relationships. This is going to seem kind of obvious, but I want to encourage you to spend time with your kids, to really put down our phones and to study them and to make it our job to understand them. One of the things that I received when I was when I was getting married was a mentor of mine. I asked her what would she suggest about what's like her piece of advice about getting married, and she said study your husband, become an expert on your husband, and then when you have kids, become an expert on them. And I have found that to be such a beautiful gift that she told me that all those years ago. I want to encourage you to turn off your devices. It's so easy to be with our kids, but not to be with our kids. And I don't have time tonight to talk through this as much as I want. But I want to highlight this quote right here. The digital is not so much the problem as what the digital pushes out. And so for our kids, as they are in the digital realm, but also for us, the problem with the digital is what it pushes out. And what we miss when we are so engaged in the digital world is that we miss this face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact and development with our kids. Okay, a little bit more on discovering our kids. How do your kids prefer to learn? What are they interested in? And what environment best supports their learning? Um, Maybe you already have answers to these questions, or maybe they'll come in time. If you don't know the answers right now, that's okay. That's part of the discovery of homeschooling and learning about our kids. But when we can answer these questions better and better, it allows us to tailor an education to our kids. We can accelerate learning where necessary, and we can pull back the reins and slow the learning down where needed. And one of the great benefits of homeschooling is that we can do that. Sometimes we just push our kids through a curriculum because they've got it. And other times we take 2 years to complete a curriculum because I know that's what that child needs. And there's no shame in that. It's just meeting the need of that student where they are at right now. And in the end, when we do that, when we discover our kids are the winners. We are seeing that as our kids age through the high school years, they have this opportunity in homeschooling to just explore what interests them. They excel in areas, they take risks, trying new things, and they get better at things. I talked about this earlier. They get better at things that they're not very good at. So we have kids who do all kinds of different things in our homeschool and in our high school. And part of that, it's just been that discovery of knowing what makes them tick and what they love and what they don't love and what they're good at and what they need to work on and what they don't need to work on, right? That whole mix of parenting and homeschooling together. I'm going to talk super briefly tonight about choosing curriculum. If you can set the foundation with these other things, this is going to be easier. Um, I don't know that it'll be easy because it's not always easy to pick the curriculum that works. But I also want to tell you, you don't have to pick the perfect curriculum. Remember that it's more than curriculum. It's experiences like our Florida trip. It's life skills like repairing the washer. It's serving others like helping our friend Carol. It's realizing that homeschool is more than a curriculum, but homeschool also needs to include curriculum, right? I still need my kids to learn to read and write and do math and think and do hard academic things that they might not always choose to do on their own. So again, when choosing curriculum, you know where I'm going to go. Ask God for guidance. Pray and ask Him. Each year, ask Him, what now, Lord? And then um, get those vision and goals out. What are our goals? Our curriculum needs to fit that and not work against that and not be over here. It needs to be aligned with what we've said is important in our home and in our homeschool. You're going to want to consider cost in money and also cost in time. How much can you spend on curriculum? So what's your budget? HSLDA says that it costs between 500 and 2,500 per child per year to home educate. Um, but I want to encourage you that expensive doesn't necessarily mean better. So I would say that um, we have often homeschooled 6 children on much less than that $2,500 per child number. If your family has the resources and the desire to spend that money, please be free to do that. But if you're like, I don't have that kind of money, you don't have to have that kind of money to home educate your children. So usually what means when we spend more on curriculum is that it's well laid out and it's much of it is done for us. And so the cost of the money cost tends to go up when the work is done. That you can bring the cost down financially by doing more of the work yourself, or by doing more family learning, or by finding resources online that are free or very inexpensive. The public library is free and there are amazing millions of resources available at your fingertips there if you want to do the research. There's also reusing curriculum for kids. And so that is an amazing way to save money. So I think what we need to do is we have to decide how much money do we want to spend each week on curriculum and planning? How much money do we have and how much time do I have? And then I think as you pray and examine that, you will find the right balance of time and money. Um, I also think another thing to consider with curriculum is the worldview of the person who's writing it. Are they a Christian? Does it matter to you if they're a Christian? We have sometimes chosen curriculums because they have a Christian worldview, and at other times we've chosen curriculums because they don't have a Christian worldview. And so it depends on what our goal is for that curriculum and that child at that moment. But it's an important thing to understand as you step into a curriculum, especially something like a science curriculum, because if it's not written from a Christian worldview, you're going to be having a lot of discussions about the evolutionary model and what that is and maybe you want to have those discussions. So do it, but just know what you're stepping into. And then what are your child's specific needs and learning styles? Do you have a child with a learning struggle? You may want to find curriculum that's geared toward to help that child the most. Like a dyslexic student does the best with specific phonics programs or math programs. And so if your child is above average and advanced, maybe you want to purchase a higher level curriculum to challenge them adequately. And so obviously we want to consider what is it that our kids need? What is it that we want them to have when we choose curriculum? There's kind of two different curriculum types out there. One is this all-in-one. This is a list of curriculum publishers: Abeka, Sunlight, My Father's World, Heart of Dakota. These guys all publish curriculums that are all in one. So you buy the first grade curriculum and you get science and math and reading and language arts. You get kind of everything for first grade all in one. They tend to be a little bit more expensive, but they're easy and the stuff is laid out and you just step through the things each day. The lesson plans are made. And so a lot of people really like these all-in-one curriculums. There's sort of the build your own, which is what we have tended to do in our school. You put together your own program. And so I'm like, well, I really like this science. So we're going to use this for science. We're going to use this for math. And that kid's going to use that math, but we're going to use this math with this kid. And so I love to piece that together. I love to research it. It doesn't intimidate me. It gives me joy. But if you're like, that is so intimidating, then maybe an all-in-one curriculum is a right step for your family for the coming year. I want to talk about a couple of popular teaching approaches. There's the textbook or traditional. If you went to a public or a private school growing up, this is probably what you studied. Lots of lots of workbooks and textbook-based programs. Some of those programs that were just on the screen, Abeka and BJU, are great examples of this teaching approach. Another approach is the unit study approach. And I have Growing of the Fruit of the Spirit here on our, this is one of our products that we carry. Chris and her friend Chris and Chris put this together years ago, and it's a unit study. And what a unit study does is it takes all of the subjects, and so in this instance, it's the fruit of the Spirit, takes all the subjects like history and literature and writing and Bible and science, and it studies them all together around a topic. Many homeschoolers love this. It's great with kids of all ages, and it's a great way to approach learning and teaching. Another approach is the classical approach. It's based on something called the trivium, which is the three stages of development: grammar, logic, rhetoric. And it focuses on knowledge acquisition in the early years, understanding in the middle grades, and in high school, wisdom. And so, an excellent resource to learn more about this is called The Well-Trained Mind. And there's like another great resource is called Classical Conversations. They have co-ops all over, and they, if you go to their website, Classical Conversations, you can learn a lot about the classical approach. Many homeschoolers love it. And then Charlotte Mason, the living book approach. Charlotte believed that children should be nurtured, not just taught. And so she combines some elements of the classical education with a more laid back and natural approach. Nature, art forms, living books, these are all kind of important habit training. These are all important aspects of the Charlotte Mason method. And I find over time a lot of homeschoolers end up in this last category, which is eclectic, where they sort of take some Charlotte Mason and some classical, and yep, we've done unit studies, but over here we do textbook, or we did that for a couple years and this for a couple years. And some of the beauties of homeschooling is we can try out different things and find what works best for us, what works best for our kids. And so we have definitely been eclectic learners over the years. I love things from all of these types of learning and teaching. Okay, so to learn more, I have these three ideas. I'm not going to spend a ton of time because Dale talked about attending a convention. I want to encourage you to put that weekend in mid-May, I think it's May 16th, 17th, might not have the date perfect there, but on your calendar and attend a convention. It can be a wonderful time away with you and some girlfriends, or with you and your husband as a couple. You can visit our website for more resources on curriculum and getting started with homeschooling, hswithconfidence.com. And then if you're just feeling kind of overwhelmed pulling all this together, you can always book a consultation with us at Homeschooling with Confidence. You can go to our website, fill out the form. We would love to meet one-on-one, learn about your family, learn about your kids, and then help you kind of send you in some directions that might be good fits for what is needed for you or for your kids. So those are all ways to take the next step or to learn more. There's so many good resources on the Mache website as well. I just want to highlight that too. So don't be afraid to try something that appeals to you in all of this. You're not married to it for the rest of your days. You can finish out the year or the semester, and you can pivot and try something else. I bet whether you like it or not, whether the curriculum is the perfect fit for you or not, you're going to learn something along the way. And isn't that what we're doing with our kids? We're learning. We're going to wrap up here. There's so much more I could say about getting started with homeschooling, but this is a start. This is a place. If you take this information and kind of process it, you and your spouse, I think you're going to be headed in a good direction. But I want to end on this note. I think homeschooling is a lot more about seeking Jesus and persevering than it is about anything else. And we're going to I gave you tons of thoughts about how to start and how to keep going, and how to raise kids who know themselves and who know Jesus above all. And all of it is worthy. Algebra and essay writing, it's worthy. It's a worthy pursuit, and it's worthy of our time and intention and effort, but it is going to be difficult at times. Parenting is difficult, and homeschooling is just an extension of our parenting. And so, my husband and I often pass back this quote to one another. It's a quote by Jacob Reese, and it says this: "When nothing seems to help, I go and look at the stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. And yet, at the 100th and first blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that blow that did it, but all that had gone before." And so every homeschooling breakthrough of any sort, whether it's behavioral or educational or spiritual, comes because a parent and a child did not give up. And that's my last piece of advice today. Don't give up. It is going to be hard some days, but it is going to be worth it. As I watch my first child launch, I think I can't think of a better way to spend my days. If I could go back 18 years and do this again, I would do it again, without any hesitation. Apostle Paul has an encouragement from Galatians 6:9. "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And so the harvest is coming in you and in your children. When the days are hard and long, keep going. The rock, the split in the rock, it's coming. That concludes what I have for content tonight. And so I want to spend a couple minutes. I know I'm well over our time, but I want to spend a couple minutes answering any questions for people who are still hanging around and still have some questions. I think Dale's been watching that. So Dale, I'm going to let you pop on and let us know what questions people have.
Yeah, hi. There haven't been any questions so far. So you did such a great job. But if you have any, now's a
Thanks.
good time to let us know. Just
Yeah, we'll just leave it
let us
open
know.
here for a minute or two. And then
Yep.
if there aren't any, we'll let you be free for the
Yeah.
evening.
I want to thank you guys for joining while we're waiting for somebody to ask a question if they have one. I just want to let you guys know we're so excited about the Mache Convention. Please come. And if you can't make it, start with the Homeschool Minnesota podcast. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple. Check those places out. Is it possible to homeschool and still work full time? I think it is. I think that it did take some organization and some doing, and but if you're determined to homeschool, you will find a way to make that happen.
Yeah, I think there are more and more families, dual income families who
Yep.
are who are homeschooling today. And so I have a friend at church who homeschools. She and her husband both work full time, but she has kind of a unique schedule. So she's off on Mondays. And so they start school on Friday night. And they do a little bit of school Friday night. They do a little bit of school on Saturday. They do some school Sunday afternoon after church. And then they do school on Monday. And they do a 4-day school week, and it's mom and her daughter's in elementary school. She's young, and this is how they do school. And then grandma is around Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with her, and doesn't do academic, but does some field trips and some play dates and things that are also important in the
Yep.
homeschooling realm. So it is possible, but Dale is right about being organized. You got to be on your game. Some probably pre-packaged and ready-made stuff is probably going to be really important for your homeschool,
Yep.
all in one curriculums.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks so much for being with
All
us.
right.
God bless you all.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye bye.